All right, let's dive into something truly fascinating. We're going to tackle a huge challenge at the very frontier of science. How in the world do you measure an experience that feels, well, beyond measurement? We're going to look at some amazing research from Johns Hopkins University that tries to do exactly that, to quantify the mystical. Just think about it for a second. The most profound moment of your life. A feeling of pure connection or awe or an incredible insight. Now, how would you assign a number to that? Sounds impossible, right? Well, that's the exact problem scientists were staring down when they started studying psychedelic therapies. And this puzzle, it became unbelievably important with this huge, renewed interest in one particular compound. So, scientists are seeing this incredible promise in using psilocybin for some of our toughest mental health conditions. But they realized pretty quickly that the therapeutic benefit wasn't just about the chemical itself. No, it seemed to be deeply, deeply connected to a specific kind of experience people were having while on the drug. They gave it a name, the Mystical Experience. But don't let the name fool you. This isn't some vague spiritual term, not to them anyway. It's a scientific one, with a really clear operational definition. But here's the catch. To actually study psilocybin's benefits, they first had to figure out how to measure the very thing that, by its own definition, is famously hard to put into words. So how do you solve a problem like that? Well, if you're a scientist, you build a tool, a very specific, very carefully crafted questionnaire. And here it is, the hero of our story today, the MEQ-30. It's a 30-question survey designed to do what seems impossible, to capture the signature of a mystical experience and turn it into cold, hard data. It's actually a more refined, more scientifically robust version of an older questionnaire. Now, what's really cool is how they structured this. It's not just one big, fuzzy blob of a mystical feeling. The researchers identified 4 distinct, measurable components that kept showing up again and again. So let's break these 4 factors down real quick. First, you've got the mystical factor itself. That's the core feeling of unity, of oneness with everything. Then there's positive mood. We're talking deep, profound joy, peace, and awe. Next up is the transcendence of space and time, where the normal rules of reality just seem to melt away. And finally, ineffability, the classic feeling that words just can't possibly do it justice. By measuring these 4 things, you can get a kind of numerical fingerprint of the whole experience. But here's the cliffhanger. The first version of this amazing tool was built on, let's just say, a shaky ground. It relied on people filling out online surveys about mushroom trips they'd had on average 8 years in the past. I mean, you can imagine, memory is a tricky thing, right? The conditions were totally uncontrolled. So the big question was, is this tool really valid? To find out, scientists at Johns Hopkins designed the ultimate stress test for the MEQ-30. They brought it out of the wild west of the internet and into the rigorous, controlled setting of the laboratory. And this was no small-scale thing. They pulled data from 5 different controlled experiments, which included 184 participants. This wasn't some casual survey. This was a serious, large-scale scientific effort to see if this questionnaire could actually hold up under real scrutiny. And this just lays out the difference perfectly. We're going from random online surveys to a controlled lab, from an unknown, uncontrolled dose to a specific, known dose. And here's the kicker. From a memory that's 8 years old on average to a report filed just 7 hours after the experience. This is how you build reliable science. So what happened? Why did they find when they put the MEQ-30 to the test under these super strict conditions? Well, the results were pretty fascinating. First things first, the tool worked. The data from the controlled lab setting completely confirmed that those 4 factors, mystical, positive mood, space/time, and ineffability, were indeed a reliable way to structure the whole experience. The questionnaire was solid, but here's where it gets really powerful. This graph shows that a person's score on just the mystical part of the questionnaire could strongly predict how spiritually significant they would rate that experience weeks later. The data they captured in that moment was directly linked to lasting meaning. And it wasn't just about feelings. The total score on the whole MEQ-30 was able to predict long-term positive changes people said happened because of the experience, changes in their well-being, their sense of meaning, and even their actual everyday behavior. This wasn't just measuring a feeling, it was measuring a catalyst for change. So here's the crucial takeaway, the real knockout punch. the researchers controlled for how strong the drug felt overall. And what they found was that the lasting positive outcomes weren't driven just by the sheer intensity of the drug. No, they were driven by the quality and the character of the experience itself, the very thing the MEQ-30 was designed to measure. It's not how high you get, but what kind of high you get. Now, validating a questionnaire might just sound like a technical detail for scientists, but believe me, this has huge implications for the entire field. Why does this matter so much? Because having a reliable, validated tool to measure the mystical experience, it changes everything. It elevates the research from just anecdotal reports to hard, comparable scientific data. I mean, think about it. With a standardized tool like this, researchers anywhere in the world can finally speak the same language. They can compare results across totally different studies. They can finally start to pinpoint the mechanism of healing. And crucially, it lets them untangle the subjective experience from the raw pharmacology of the drug. So the ultimate takeaway is this. By creating and validating this tool, science has built a bridge. It allows us to move from simply describing a profound mystery to actually measuring a therapeutic mechanism. We can now quantify one of the most ineffable parts of being human and use that data to hopefully help people heal. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought, doesn't it? We now have a reliable yardstick for the mystical. It really makes you wonder, what other profound, seemingly untouchable parts of our own minds are we going to be able to measure next?